Yeah, this is going to be a hard one. We're going to talk about being a Christian and dealing with abortion. Hey, everybody, this is Tom with Tom's Talk Show, and I thought I would just dive into. I had some extra, thoughts in my mind about this whole subject, and it's very, it's very polarizing between all the different sides of the political realm and the personal realm, and and the definitely the the gender male female realm. How can anybody, you're a man, you can't talk about that. I'm like, well, I can say what I think and what I feel. um and in uh men in their role, right, in this whole situation, are fully, at they have the power to stop it from the start, right? They, men can, control themselves. That's where I take it. So that's where, you know the the object of the men would be to not impregnate the woman to begin with, right? That's kind of a plain and simple thing. There are many verses in the Bible that are here that explain, like, when life begins. So we have, we just go over a few. So we have Jeremiah 1:5. It says, "Before I formed you in the womb," that's God creating you in the womb. "Before knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you and have appointed you a prophet to the nations." He was talking to Jeremiah about that. So, and that says, "Lord, your Redeemer, I and the one who formed you in the womb." So this is God performing this function, forming, people in the womb. So it's very uh, very easy to see what, that if you believe, in God, you're a Christian, then you have to go by biblical standards, right? That's uh, God knew you before you were born. God knew who you were going to be, and that you were going to have, this existence, and He started that working in the womb even before you were actually born into the world. So by having an abortion, you're actually interrupting God, right? Is basically, what it is. For a Christian, we obviously see it as murder, but the oddities of the whole thing uh, is that God knows, right, everyone's, how many footsteps people are going to make, right? How many footsteps? So Psalm 139:16, "Your eyes have seen my unformed substance, and in your book were written all of the days that were ordained me, yet as there were not one of them." So before they were born, God knew how many days there were going to be. So people who have abortions, you're not, basically what I'm saying is, you're not surprising God. It's like, "Oh no, that happened. What I didn't expect that." No, you're not surprising God. You're not catching God off guard. You're doing none of those things. God knows how many steps we're all going to have, and he knows what's going on. That's why he, wrote the Bible and those verses about, weaving us in his womb, and that he knew us before we were, just a small little speck, in our mother's womb, so that we would have the seriousness of what was happening, right? He, you know, people, like, before we had all of the medical knowledge that we had today, um, how would what was really going on? Just something is growing inside of them, and this concept of weaving and all of that, it wasn't really a concept in, like, biblical days. So God, knowing how it works because He created it, right, understands and gave us that concept of all the parts of the body kind of weaving together as the cells split and continue to grow and form, the baby before it's born. So so what happens? It, on the God side, like, if you're a Christian and everything else, it's like, okay, you get that concept, right? On the other side, in Romans, God kind of describes this just, and that in Romans 1:28-32 is, and they didn't see fit to acknowledge God any longer. God gave them over to a depraved mind to be filled with unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice, gossip, slanderers, haters of God, uh, a bunch of other things here. And although they knew the ordinance of God, they practiced such things that are worthy of death, not only to do the same, but also to give hearty approval to those who practice them. So that's one of the big things. So there, all of the bad things, if you know, and this is seen more and more in the very far left, right? Of all the things that they're acknowledging, and they want to acknowledge and want to continue to acknowledge and agree with each other, right? I mean, we can't, how can we see that, in the state of Minnesota, where Walls is from, right? Here's the report direct from the state. The state created a report that they put in this thing called the Lozernyi Institute, and it was reported. So that says, I'll read it straight out. 5 babies were reported to be born alive during abortions in Minnesota in 2021. None of the babies survived being born alive. According to the report, 1 baby passed away due to fetal anomalies, while 2 cases, comfort care measures were provided as planned. 2 babies were judged to be pre-viable, and no attempt was made to save their life. So there, right there, that's 2 children were just given comfort care and allowed to die. So that 2 children were fully viable, fully. I mean, my younger sister does this, delivers preemies, and those could have very well had some very simple procedures done, very known procedures, I should say, done, and have them live. But yeah, what it was inconvenient for the mother. It was, I don't know. We don't know the exact circumstances around everything going on, but this is the law in Minnesota. There was a governor of a state who was, a few years ago, who was kind of let the cat out of the bag. Oh, we'll just make it comfortable and then go in the other room and discuss what to do. What? That to me is horrible. And people that agree with this, you can see where, you've taken God out of the whole thing. But like I said, you're not surprising God in doing this. God knows that there is, evil. We live in a fallen world, right? Once Eve went into the garden and ate the one fruit that she was not supposed to, and Adam went and did that as well, we became in a fallen world where there's good and there's bad, right? And this is very directly, a result of the bad part of our fallen world that we live in. So there are some, there's discussions and things about what happens to these children when they're born. I mean, there's a concept, the Christian and also kind of a Jewish concept, called the age of accountability, where you get to the point where you can understand the gospel. So there's no direct real verses. There's some kind of verses that are there where, David had a child with Bathsheba, then the child died. So before the child had died, he was very upset. Then after the child died, he was not upset, thinking that the child was going to be in heaven, that he was going to be able to get to see the child again when he reached heaven. So, and in Jewish culture, the bar mitzvah ceremony is for the male of the household to then get to a point where up until 13, when they have the bar mitzvah, right, the parents are responsible for the sin of the child. And then once you get to 13, then they have the bar mitzvah, where now the child is fully responsible for their sin and has to do all the tasks to get that sin, forgiven. And So there's that kind of concept and that kind of thing in that is kind of, biblical. And I kind of lead to that. I cannot see God and His grace, especially when in Matthew, said Jesus said, "Let the children alone; do not hinder them from coming to me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." So that kids, children, they're innocent basically, and once you get to an age where your brain is developed to the point where you can understand, you know, that there is a God, that there, which you should be learning all as you're growing up. Your parents, you know, Christian parents should be telling their children, "Oh, look at what God made here. Look at what God made here. God did this here. God, And when you pray together as a family and be able to say, you know, we're praying for this person, and oh, they got better, so we prayed that God would heal them, and then God does heal them, right? So keeping these concepts going on, for your kids as they grow up. Then when they get to a point where they can come to where they realize, wow, God is real. I do have bad things that I do in my life, and I need to be, repent from that. So that was my, upbringing at 10 years old. I accepted Christ and, was baptized. We were going to a Baptist church at that time. My family, my mom still goes to a Baptist church, but so I had that concept growing up. And very early age, I understood, oh, there's a right and wrong, and there needs to be some type of, covering. I need that redemption, from all the things that I do wrong. Does that mean I stop doing things wrong? No, of course. I'm a person. I live in a fallen world. I do bad things. I do good things. I try to, do as many good things as I can. But so I can't see God saying, oh, because, you're 4 years old, even though you do bad things and you have a human nature and you don't really understand the concept of God, that if that child dies somehow, that He's not going to take that child with Him to heaven. I can't see a God of grace not doing that. There's not a lot of, like I said, there's not a lot in the scripture about it, but I can't see Him not doing that. So for those babies that are my concept, right? And we can discuss, and you can call me wrong or whatever. Is concept is that these babies that are aborted and left to die will end up in heaven with God. So the problem comes back onto the mother. What they really don't tell a lot of people, a lot of these mothers that go in and abort their children, is they don't really tell you or give you. I mean, I've heard several stories and talked to several people about the guilt and everything afterwards, that somehow you as a person actually do know that it's a baby, but because you've denied God, your mind is kind of moved over away from God. God's like, fine, you want to keep doing that? Go. It's kind of I'll be here for you when you get back, right? When you realize what you're doing is completely wrong, I'll be here for you. What God is saying, kind of the prodigal son tale, right? There in Romans. So go, I'm not going to help you anymore. I'm not going to do anything for you. You're just going to be all out on your own. And let your mind go where it's going to go. And that's where you get all this, craziness. Like your morality gets broken down into whatever you want, instead of, my morality is based on the Bible. If you don't have that, then your morality is based on whatever you want. That's why you end up with, a blend of genders all across the spectrum everywhere, right? Because they're not adhering to any kind of standard. God said, fine, you want to do all that stuff? There's your mind. Go. Have fun with that. When you hit the gutter and have nowhere to go, then come back and look at me, and, I'll welcome you back with open arms and throw a banquet for you, just like in the prodigal son parable. So that's really where I see the big issue, is how these people who've done this. I mean, there's, you could give people, the the rape and incest thing, that's you're compounding tragedy upon tragedy. But incest, I can see doing that, knowing what I know, what I've said about the child going to heaven, right? Way before the age of accountability. And typically incest babies have very bad birth defects and things like that. The other one is the rape one, and from what I've seen and done research and things, and from friends that I know who have been raped, is that it's a very traumatic experience. And in that trauma, your body typically shuts down and shuts off. So it's a true rape where you're actually attacked. And this is where it gets kind of, little gray area here. Like if you're truly raped and everything else, and you're totally attacked and totally distraught and totally, you know, your nerves and everything, your emotions are just exploded. Typically, you cannot get pregnant because your whole body is shut down. So the other middle ground is like the date rape, right? And there's all different levels of that, where you just went out with a guy one time and you made some bad decisions and now you're pregnant, so you're going to call it rape. Or in the middle, you've been dating somebody for a while and they force themselves on you and all that. So I mean, the spectrum of it, covers across everything. So I mean, there are stories of people who have lived and had wonderful, amazing lives who were products of rape. So, I don't know if you want to, you're not going to hear about that because that's not part of the left agenda message for that. It's, I feel very bad for, anybody who's been through any kind of rape or anything else. It should never happen, right? We should, have, very good gun laws for women. We should have, I really love, the little Byrna paintball things. I'm probably going to get one of those. That's, a non-lethal self-defense thing that you can use. I mean, every woman should just have one of those, right, in their purse. They need to make them a little bit smaller, so that, maybe with only 3 little balls instead of 5 or whatever they have in them, just to make them a little bit more compact. But some type of self-defense. And this is also where, real, true, actual men need to stand up. I worked at a store. It was a grocery store in California. It's called Pack and Save. It was a division of Safeway. It was open 24 hours. So often the women cashiers would be, they'd get off their shift at 11 and have to walk out to their car. And every single time that someone was there and I was there, and the managers knew just to call and say, we need an escort. So one of the guys or several guys, there's always stuff out there, like you can bring shopping carts in or whatever after you're done, you walk them out, right? You walk them out, you get them to their car, they get in their car, they drive away, you say goodnight, right? That's something that's definitely, it's there, but I don't think it's where it should be, right? So the tragedy, I guess, is really in this whole thing is really for the woman having the abortion. I mean, are they going to, at some point in their life, okay, they've had the abortion 3 or 4 years later, they're at a park, they're sitting there, they're relaxing, drinking their coffee, they see a family with a child, lady with a child and her son, little bit boys running back and forth in the playground and having a good time, and he goes over and he falls down and skins his elbow on something, and he's like, and it's bleeding a little bit, whatever, and he starts to cry a little bit, and he starts running, back towards you, sitting there on your seat, and you're just thinking, you're a woman, you have some motherly instincts. Oh, you could help, but the kid runs right by you back to mom, and mom, says, "Oh, you okay, little Jimmy," or whoever the kid is, "Oh yeah, yeah." What do you want me to do? Do you need a Band-Aid? She's like, "No, just kiss it. One of your mom kisses always makes it feel better." The mom does that and runs off, and the kid runs back off. And you're going to come to a realization that what you did gave up all of that interaction, that family, that connection, all of that. Right? That's the tragedy that I see. Right? That happens. So, but anyway, there it is. Those are my thoughts, my ideas, everything else. I mean, does that affect who you vote for? Of course, you always want to vote directly and push as far to, as you can, to getting the least amount of abortion in your state. That's always, preferable, and getting people back to being responsible, right? I mean, the verse I can always go to is, marriage is to be held in honor among all, and the marriage bed is to be undefiled for fornicators and adulterers. God will judge. So that's just, part of scripture. And if you're not abiding by that, then those kinds of things happen, right? What follows out of that, right? You go on, 5 or 6 dates, you start dating someone, you get 4 months in, I don't know, who knows how long, people date before they start having sex, which they shouldn't. They should wait until marriage, right? That's the God way. But people are people. And then there's a child gets conceived, and then they have an abortion. All these things, how does that all, then you've got the guilt, then you've got, maybe something happened during the abortion that caused something inside the woman so that maybe she can never have children after that. That happens. So all of these things can cascade just by ignoring Hebrews 13:4, right? But if you're not a Christian and you don't believe any of this stuff, then go on your way. I mean, do what you want to do, because that's what people do. If you don't have a standard that's outside of yourself, then you're going to do whatever you want to do, and your standard is going to be whatever you make up. Now, the standard that I have with God is very good. It's very wholesome. It's very uplifting. It's very, I'm not going to say, I wouldn't say comfortable, because we have, Bible says we will have tribulation, we'll have problems. But there's a lot of peace in that. And that's what I wish, for people throughout all of this, that they would learn and be able to come to God and be able to have that peace. So, all right. Thank you so much for watching and getting all the way this far through the video with me going on about this subject. But it's very touchy, but, I like going at it in a kind of a non-emotional, factual kind of way. So, yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. And if you got any comments about what I said, we want to discuss anything, just let me know down below. And I'm more than happy to discuss any of this with you. All right. Thanks, and have a great day.